I just wanted to offer a warm welcome to everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Deborah Young and I'm the CEO of the RegTech Association, and we are your hosts today. I wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today and pay my respects to elders past and present, and offer a very warm welcome to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends that we have with us today, and a big warm welcome to all of you. We took a record number of registrations for today, and there are people with us from 16 countries, so big warm welcome. We've got around 46 regulated institutions, 19 government/regulators, and about 70 RegTech companies. We've been running this program for about 3 years, and it's fair to say that it's had to pivot a few times, especially during the pandemic. But these programs have actually enjoyed really the lion's share of driving our engagement since we launched it. And since the beginning of last year, we've had nearly 14,000 people from more than 75 countries attend these programs. And just with government representatives alone, there's been a 242% increase in the number of government representatives coming along to these events. So it's giving you some idea that RegTech is on the rise and people are alive to what RegTech can produce. And so these programs are really meant to shine a light on the different RegTech solutions around the various areas of risks that we've developed as part of our taxonomy. You can see on the screen right now our roadmap for this year, and I'm not going to go through everything on there, but suffice to say we are seeing much more interest from different geographical regions demanding more RegTech, and you can see the US, the UK and Europe as being one, and we're really excited to be blazing a bit of a trail there in terms of our UK and US expansion. And the presenters today are part of a community that have really helped support this and grow this and create this flotilla that we have. And another important new thing is that next week we will also be launching our very first RegTech Startup Affiliate Membership category. So we have developed a programmatic approach to help early stage companies on their RegTech journey. So please do watch your emails. There will be more on that as it's launched next week. But actually, the reason why we're here is to talk about regulatory compliance, and we have some fantastic companies who are going to do some short presentations, including APX, Clear Dynamics, Identity, Know Your Solution, Regulation City, RipJar, and Workflow. But before we get underway, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping. Today we will be recording everything that's happening, and every registered delegate will receive a copy of the recording, so don't worry, nobody will miss out. If I could just ask everybody to remain with cameras and mics off unless you are presenting, and when it is your turn to present, you'll be invited to join us on the virtual podium. Thank you. If we can have all questions in the chat, please. The best way to make these sessions really interactive is to ask lots of questions, and what we'll invite our presenters to do is to go online on the chat and actually answer those questions, and we'll also encourage our presenters to put any case study material or any web URLs or any useful information up on the chat as well. So the chat is going to be where it's all at. As I've just reminded the presenters, they each have 5 minutes. This isn't long, it really flies by. The attendees here with us today usually know pretty deeply the problems because they're living those problems day to day. So please do make the most of the time to tell us how your solution solves the problems and who you're working with. Michael, who I'm about to introduce you to, will turn on his camera at the 4.5 minute mark, and you will know you've got 30 seconds to conclude. And we are pretty strict around the time so that we can make sure that we give equal time to the first presenter as well as the last presenter. So without further ado, I'm now going to introduce you to Michael Luckman. We're very lucky to have Michael here with us today from Gen Advisory. He's the founder and managing director of Gen Advisory, and they are a niche Australian professional services firm who support authorised deposit-taking institutions, RegTechs and FinTechs He brings 20 years financial sector regulation and advisory experience, having previously worked at APRA, the NAB, EY and the Australian government. His firm comprises a collaborative and multidisciplinary team of professionals whose focus areas include ASIC, APRA licensing and regulations, AML, CTF, RegTech adoption, and CDR implementation. Gen Advisory are advocates for increased RegTech adoption in financial services. And as an ex-financial sector regulator and advisor, Michael believes that RegTech has become a must-have in financial services today. Michael's going to do a brief presentation for us before he takes the presenters through their strides, and then at the conclusion, I'll invite everybody to turn their cameras on, and we can have a little bit of a chat at the end. So thank you, Michael. Welcome.
Thank you, Deborah, and hello and warm welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm Michael Luckman, and I'm your topic presenter and moderator for today. Now, this is the third time I've had the pleasure of moderating a RegTech Association webinar, so fingers crossed I'm gradually getting more and more seasoned at this. Next slide, please. So in the course of my topic overview, I will be covering these two areas. I will start off by providing a bit of an introduction to the fields of regulatory compliance and RegTech for those of you in the audience who might be perhaps new to these two fields, and followed by a bit of a deeper dive into actual RegTech adoption in the Australian financial services sector, which is the sector I personally am the most familiar with. Now, the overarching objective of my overview really is to highlight not so much the potential or hypothetical benefits of RegTech, which I think are already well documented and indisputable, but more really to highlight more that the actual adoption and to highlight actual examples of RegTech solutions which have already been adopted in the sector. So part one, introduction to regulatory compliance and RegTech. Next slide, please, Hong. Next slide, thanks, Hong. Yep, so a commonly accepted definition of regulatory compliance was recently issued by the Financial Stability Board, and it refers to an organization's adherence to the laws, regulations, guidelines, and specifications specific to that organization. So now from that definition, it can be inferred, therefore, that unlike legal compliance, which refers merely to compliance with adherence to laws and legislation, regulatory compliance has a broader scope in that it can cover things like government regulations, industry guidelines, codes of conduct, or even internal policies and procedures. Now, the second bullet point, the term RegTech, on the other hand, refers to the suite of technologies that are used to enable an organization to automate and enhance their risk and compliance practices, right? So it can be seen already from these two definitions that the fields of regulatory compliance and RegTech are very complementary. RegTech technologies are very conducive to helping an organization achieve regulatory compliance. Now, it's worth noting also briefly at this stage that RegTech, as is now being understood, is not just a subset of fintech. It is different. It is a field of technologies in its own right, which has its own unique identity. Now, it's worth noting at this stage, to date, most of the RegTech innovations have occurred mostly within the financial services sector, and that's, in a sense, is not surprising because the financial services sector, as we all know, is one of the most highly regulated sectors, just generally. That said, we are seeing increasingly RegTech being adopted in other regulated industries, and with one example of that being healthcare. Next slide, please. Next slide. So now this quote is from ASIC, and it's worth noting that within Australia, ASIC has been a regulator who has been a strong supporter of RegTech and has contributed to the growth of the RegTech sector in Australia. Now, this quote from ASIC, we'd like to say Jen Advisory and I fully agree with the slight nuance being, while this quote has phrased it in terms of a hypothetical and potential, Jen Advisory believes we have actually seen these evidence move from the hypothetical and potential to reality. Next slide, please. So part 2, actual RegTech adoption in financial services. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights what I said before. In Australia, we have actually seen evidence of RegTech adoption being used within each of these areas within the financial services sector. And that further reinforces my point that RegTech in Australia and in the financial services has moved from a hypothetical or potential to actual usage. Now, in the interest of time, I will skip over my last slide, which where I had zoomed in and focused on one particular example of RegTech, which is in the AML CTF space. It's fairly self-explanatory, but in the interest of time, I will let you read this slide in your spare time. And without further ado, I will turn you over to, I will now introduce our turn to our member presentations, and I'll introduce you to our first speaker. Yeah, so our first, thank you everyone for listening to that presentation. Now, Deborah, should I do the introductions for the first?
Yes, you can, except that I got a text from Hong to say that perhaps Yvonne is now going to go last. Hong, can you please just...
Deborah, I'm actually on, so I can actually do...
All good, okay, all good. So you can invite Yvonne, we're all good. Thank you.
Got it. All right, so our first presenter for today is Yvonne Nai from APX, who has 5 minutes. So yes, over to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Michael. Sorry, my camera is not working, but I'll go ahead with my presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yvonne, the APAC business lead at APX based in Singapore. So APX was founded 5 years ago in Zurich, Switzerland. Today, we are present in 5 countries with more than 80 employees. We have our clients from global tier 1 banks to mid-sized asset managers to master regulatory compliance and related complexity by embedding compliance into their business. Next. Traditional compliance is about putting policies in place, training employees, and having controls, often to detect post-activities that non-compliant behaviors has occurred. While compliance has introduced technology solutions some time ago in isolated areas such as transaction screening, these approaches typically remain siloed, harboring the risk of inconsistent taxonomy and interpretation. Many times, the users had to switch medium and re-enter a specific scenario or data set, making the process cumbersome and not efficient. We see that many organizations are still struggling today with the way compliance information are being passed to the client-facing employees to ensure that they act in a compliant manner. As such, our vision at APX is to fix issues by achieving only compliant actions while being efficient in their existing application. This means not only to provide precise answers to complex regulatory questions at the right time, but also directly in the tools which are being used by the financial institutions, such as the core banking system, portfolio management system, CRM, and so on. Next. So what is our approach? Here on the first 3 left column shows the APX solution. On the far left is our regulatory topic coverage. To date, we have regulatory rules from cross-border compliance, portfolio optimization tax rules to marketing material rules, and we are building more rules as I'm speaking here. The second pillar is our collaboration with content partners such as EY, KPMG, Deloitte, Baker McKinsey, and law firms who are already providing PDF format interpretations to their clients. We now take a step further by digitizing these rules into digital, machine-readable format via our technology, which is represented in the middle column. The APX rule governance platform is at the core and function as the heart of all the regulatory rules. The rules are being maintained by our content partners on the platform. Our clients' legal and compliance experts have full access and control of these rules via the platform. What you see on the right-hand side are the business processes and tools being used by the different departments in the financial institutions. The same set of rules can be used in many different ways and use cases. The rules can be integrated via API into their processes or tools to perform the regulatory check at the back end, which is transparent to the users. This is where we meant by embedded compliance. We have also a non-integrated version where users are able to retrieve regulatory information via a web app anywhere and anytime, as long as the user has a browser, and that's where they can get the yes or no answers. Next. The beauty of our solution is that once you have subscribed to a regulatory topic, the rules can be used in many use cases, integrated into different tools. Taking cross-border compliance as an example, we have implemented the rules for travel requests, pre-trade checks, CRM, fund distributions, website marketing, and more. This will show some of the use cases we have implemented for our clients and their benefits. Hence, our solution provides a comprehensive and scalable approach to digital compliance. We have also implemented policy simplification for our clients using our Apex platform. To date, we have more than 55,000 rules on our platform and more than 150 countries cross-border rules. Next. Our clients benefit not only from the risk reduction and cost savings, but also for having more time to serve their clients and to work on other projects. In one analysis carried out by an external consultant from our client project, the client had 8 times fewer compliance breaches with APX than before. This resulted in the client being able to reduce its legal costs regarding compliance breaches by 10%. Other great results include up to 80% effort savings for compliance monitoring. Next. To conclude, APX is a proven solution in the market. We have implemented for Credit Suisse, Raiffeisen, just to name a few, and integrated with technology partners such as Temenos, Salesforce, and collaborating with Big 4 consulting firms globally. For more information and demo, please reach out to me at my email address here. Happy to take any questions from the chat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Yvonne, and at short notice as well. Well done on getting over the last-minute IT issues. So as Yvonne had suggested, if anyone has any questions for Yvonne, please either email her or preferably shoot your questions through via the chat function, and we'll respond. And Yvonne will also respond via the chat function. Right, so the second presenter on our list today is David Grunstein. I hope I pronounced that correctly, from Clear Dynamics.
Fantastic.
Over to you, David.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So look, thanks everyone for taking the time today. My name's David Grunstein, head of financial services with Clear Dynamics. Let's jump forward, Hong, if we can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to start off with a quote, which is that we all live under the same sky, but we don't all have the same horizon. And so Clear Dynamics was founded in 2014 with the intent of becoming a software company that solves for some of the known challenges, I guess, of legacy technology. And so we operate a modern composable technology platform, which we use to deliver exactly fit for purpose solutions to our customers, and we use that platform to deliver all kinds of things in financial services and in the field of RegTech. If we can go to the next slide, please. So look, I don't want to spend too much time on this. We all know the problems. Ultimately, financial services institutions, requirements are constantly changing, scrutiny is increasing, and ultimately the challenges with responding are ultimately related to data and to manual processes that we build around that data. And we believe that the future financial services institution needs to shift from a mode of having challenges with availability and quality of data to having data as a strategic asset, to move from manual processes and tactical solutions to automated controls fully integrated into business processes, and to move from reaction through to really seeing regulatory compliance as a differentiator. We believe our platform can help our clients do that. If we can jump to the next slide, please. So just to quickly introduce Clear Dynamics, we were founded in 2014. We're an Australian software company with about 150 odd employees and offices around the country. We develop composable AI-enabled enterprise applications using our proprietary solution AOS, which is the underlying platform that we build off. We've got 40 odd customers across 10 industry verticals. Financial services is the heart and soul of everything that we've done to get to this point, and there's a lot of experience built in. If we can jump to the next slide. So ultimately, AOS. What is AOS? If you think about data as telling the story of what software needs to do, we take a data-led approach to software development. Our platform AOS is software that writes software, and we effectively start with a data representation of the problem that we're trying to solve. If we can jump to the next page. So if you think about, every company expresses itself with data. It's the single most important differentiator, and in many instances that data is locked up in legacy platforms, in a complex technology landscape. Often it's in many systems where the logic of those systems is long lost to time, or in systems that don't natively talk to each other. And inevitably, the effort and work to meet regular or compliance commitments and so on ultimately comes down to being able to find ways to gather, access, transform that data, and then obviously provide it in a format that's suitable. If we can jump to the next page. So we believe that every problem, every industry, every company, every business problem can be understood with metadata. And if we jump to the next page, our platform ultimately is able to simplify, contextualize, and orchestrate all of the data that's available to a company by effectively ingesting it in whatever form it's in, and then quickly translating it into hyper adaptive and perfect fit software through our platform, which automates the software development lifecycle. If we can jump to the next page. Ultimately, we've done, as I mentioned, a lot of work in financial services. Our platform supports businesses like Genworth with processing and doing data aggregation and auditing of mortgages that come through their business for LMI, with Latitude Financial Services to support the securitization of their loan book. And then with banks like Bank of Queensland, for example, where we've built a compliant by design origination process for their commercial bank. But as I mentioned, we work across other industries as well. So for example, with Cargill, we've built a single view of data across their grain trading organization, mapping thousands of data points from multiple systems to create a single view of grain trade and help them run their business more effectively. So that's a very quick introduction. Last page, I think it's just my contact details, but we'd love to talk more about how Clear Dynamics can help your organizations meet their compliance and regulatory obligations.
Thank you, David, and well done on timing your presentation for exactly the 5-minute mark. You just exactly hit the 5-minute mark. So well timed.
Thank you.
Well done. So yeah, time to perfection. Thank you, David. So yeah, any questions for David, please send them through by the chat function for us to respond immediately, and also reach out to David by email. Our third presenter for today is Claire Rhodes from Identity.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. I'm not sure I'm going to time it as well, Michael, but I promise I'll do my best. Next slide, please, Hong. That'd be great. My name's Claire Rhodes. As I said, I'm the Head of Sales and Marketing here at Identity. At Identity, we're helping organisations automate complete and accurate reporting to AUSTRAC. And we're soon looking at launching into New Zealand as well to streamline reporting to the New Zealand FIU. So I won't spend too much time here on this slide, but I think everyone here is aware of the challenges with AUSTRAC reporting. But some of the things that we hear from customers to talk about most often is really the impact of complexity in the regulations as it relates to what is and isn't reportable, in particular for IFTIs, international transactions. We recently did a survey of market participants which looked at 3 different scenarios for how money moves across borders. And we asked if each of these would be reportable under the entity's IFTI reporting program. Interestingly, I think the results were really split. One of the scenarios we were testing in particular had 57% of people say that they would report it and 43% of people say that they wouldn't. So it's been a really interesting insight, I guess, into some of the ambiguity around legislation that reporting entities are dealing with. And if anyone is interested in having a look at some of the survey results, please let me know via the chat, and I can get in touch with you. Otherwise, we're going to be sending out a full summary of those in the next couple of weeks. The other thing we hear most about is really around poor data quality. It's either missing or incorrect information. And really the need for more assurance right across the process, so from start to finish. So not having a single view across all payment systems, using spreadsheets and manual processes to manage compliance, it definitely makes it harder to validate whether reporting has been done right or not. Next slide, please, Hong. So Identity's built a platform that is designed to enable you to address some of the challenges that we just talked about. The goal really is to help you dial down manual processes and get more clarity on the status of reporting. So anti-money laundering and financial crime compliance teams use the platform by logging in, and the first thing that they see is a dashboard similar to the one that's up on your screen now. And really what that does is it shows at a glance where every transaction is on its journey. And we can structure this up for any type of user. So this could be, board, CEO, or operations teams, anyone who's using the platform day to day, and anyone who needs that oversight of the reporting process. Not only can you see what's been reported, and there's a timeline and a record of the rules that were used to make that decision. So for example, if you have a cross-border transaction, it gets run through the rules, determine whether it's reportable or not based on the rules that we work with you to put in. You can really monitor at a glance any of the exceptions as well as they process towards AUSTRAC's SLAs, and that's really going towards that assurance piece that I mentioned before, making sure that if they need to be escalated because they're getting close to the deadline and there's still an outstanding piece of information, that they are escalated appropriately to make sure those deadlines are all met. Because the obligation to AUSTRAC really still sits with our customers, we've also built the platform to allow customisation of the rules so that they can be done according to your own risk tolerance and your business approach. We've also already able to accept multiple file formats, including SwiftMT and ISO 20022, and that's all really to keep in line with the changes that AUSTRAC's been making to its schema. The platform is currently focused on automating IFTIs and TTRs for AUSTRAC, but we're actually testing SMR automation at the moment with a small group of our customers as well. And as I mentioned, we'll be launching into New Zealand for New Zealand PTR reporting in the next couple of months. The next slide, please, Hong. Once you're on the platform, it's fairly easy to use. Transactions get loaded into the platform, and once they're there, they're automatically validated against the AUSTRAC reporting rules. And then those are the ones that we've worked with you to input. For any of the transactions that are reportable, they're then checked to ensure that the data needed by AUSTRAC is available. And if not, there's a streamlined exceptions workflow to simplify that remediation. And you can kind of get a glimpse of that with the dashboard I've got on the screen here now. You can see that there's 16 exceptions for this particular transaction. And when you click view, it pulls up a sidebar into the platform that lets you see exactly what they are, remediate with them within the platform, and then send them for approval. And you've got a full record of which exceptions have been changed, what changes have been made by whom, and who they've been approved by. You can go on to the next slide then, Hong, please. Because our goal is really to help have certainty and control around compliance with AUSTRAC, there's a complete audit trail of the activity related to every transaction, including any edits and approvals made by the team and a record of what was submitted to AUSTRAC. So you've really got that clarity and the status around reporting at any point in time. You can see on the right-hand side some of the customers that we're already working with. And if anybody's interested, I'm happy to share in advance a copy of those survey results I mentioned earlier. We're also offering entities the ability to trial the platform and some of the new features and functionality as well. So if anybody's interested, I'll hang around in the chat. But that's it from me. Thank you, Michael. Back to you.
We can't hear you, Michael. Are you on mute?
Oops, apologies for that. Yeah, so I was just saying thank you, Claire. If anyone would like to see the results of the survey that Claire had just described, please shoot her a request via the chat function. And also any questions for Claire, please do so via the chat function. Our fourth speaker for today is Larry Simon from Know Your Solutions. Over to you, Larry.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to the RegTech Association for facilitating this interesting discussion. By way of a brief introduction, my name is Larry Simon. I'm a consultant in regulatory compliance and have been providing these services for 20 years now. Prior to that, I worked at a retail broker and have product experience in equities, futures, and foreign exchange contracts. But clearly my passion is tech. I'm the principal and founder of a company called Know Your Solutions. We're a bespoke RegTech company offering a number of products as a SaaS solution. Our aim is to automate complex compliance obligations, enabling you to evidence compliance, with obviously the emphasis on the word evidence compliance. So by way of brief introduction, the first product is Know Your Customer. That is a very sophisticated customer onboarding and AML solution. We do things really in a unique way, so come have a look if you're interested. The other is Know Your Risk, which is enterprise risk management software, and Know Your DDO, which is a cost-effective and scalable way to meet and comply with your design and distribution obligations, or MiFID. But the product I want to talk about today is called Know Your Regulations. This is bespoke mapping technology. What I mean by that is it's not a GRC solution that does some mapping. It is being purposely built for mapping. It's authentic, being that it's been developed by lawyers, auditors, accountants, and compliance professionals, and it's road tested. It's been operational since 2009. Thanks, Hong, you beat me to it. So we operate in a self-regulatory environment. What that means is that you're expected to know and understand your obligations. If a regulator were to do a review, they only need to ask 3 really simple questions. 1 is, what do you think your obligations are? 2, what controls do you have in place to evidence compliance with those obligations? And 3, are your controls effective, or are you in compliance or non-compliance? Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. Hong?
Larry, it's Deborah here. Just bear with us. I'm sorry. There are internet issues which are getting in the way. So Hong will do his best to move the slide, and if worst comes to worst, he may move it a little bit before or after.
No problem. Alrighty. So what are some of the problems that we're trying to solve? Well, firstly is the complex and ever increasing volume of legislation. We live in a highly regulated world, and simultaneously the penalties for non-compliance are becoming more ubiquitous, and the fines are certainly getting larger. There are inefficiencies with manual processing, and we all know Excel spreadsheets don't work. We've got a shortage of qualified staff who are expensive and doing menial tasks, but most importantly, the legislation is continuing to change and it's hard to keep up to date. Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. So how are we trying to solve these problems? First and foremost is we're taking a top-down approach. GRC products tend to take a bottom-up approach, whereby they map a control to a specific legislation. We take a different view. We start from the top. So what this means is that we bring in the entire legislation, we identify the complex and the set of obligations, and then we map a solution to those obligations. And the intention is nothing's overlooked. We offer multi-mapping, multi-directional mapping. So it's not one-on-one mapping, but it's rather one-to-many mapping, which is forwards and backwards. For example, we can bring in the CorpSec, map it to the regulations, map it to the legislative instruments, to the regulatory guides, and to your policies and procedures, and map them forwards and backwards. What this does, it gives you a complete line of sight from the regulations to your policies and your controls. We offer a global solution where we have multiple legislative instruments, and we're clearly trying to automate manual processes where we can capture and codify best practice. We are trying to make it easy for staff to understand their responsibilities and are able to evidence compliance with their responsibilities. Clearly, monitoring and reporting plays a huge part, so management can get a view of what's happening. Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. So what are some of the important features? Content, content, content. We have a growing comprehensive list and interactive library, over 10,000 regulations, standards, best practices, and over 300 assessments that are ready to go. As I mentioned previously, we offer point and click bidirectional mapping. We offer very powerful searching capability. Whether you want to search within the database or cross databases, you can get the results within seconds. It's hugely powerful. One of the hardest things and the best things that we offer is regulatory change management. So for example, if you're bringing the updated version of the Corps Act, you actually don't clobber your previous work. Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. So some of the expected standard features are included in the software, such as workflow, templates, and assessments. You can use ours or you develop your own with ease. But one of the nicest features is that once you've mapped and managed your links, then you can import them into our risk assessment tool and then risk assess and manage those legislative requirements. Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. So give you a sneak peek of the software. I'll just wait for the slide to pop up. Sorry, so here's a sneak peek of the software. What we've done here is brought in the Corps Act, brought in the Corps regulations and a AFS license, and you can see those are clearly mapped in multiple directions where you can actually see the requirements. Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. Just some of the noticeable clients. What I do want to emphasize on this page, though, is the mapping technology works with any legislative requirement, whether it be real estate, whether it be pharmaceutical, transportation. The concept is you can map any obligation in any legislation and evidence compliance with those obligations. Thanks, Hong. Next slide, please. Just again, wanted to say thank you and provide you with my contact details. Please, if you'd like to see a demonstration of the software, please reach out and we can go from there.
Thank you very much, Larry, and well done on getting through those, despite the IT issues. So well done. Sorry, it
was a bit disruptive.
No, no. So well done. So, and
threw me a little bit. Thank you.
No. And so I think that's a nice segue. So yeah, any questions for Larry? Please put them through send them through via the chat function.
Thank you.
Right. That's a nice segue to our next presenter number 5, Bruce Wren from Regulation City. Over to you, Bruce.
Hi, guys. Just making sure you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Terrific. Okay, well, thank you. All right. If we could just go to the previous, I want you to all imagine every financial services regulation was available in a single website. Hi, I'm Bruce Wren, CEO of Regulation City. In this case, we're talking about all financial services regulation in Australia, where there are 6 regulators, as well as the Federal Register of Legislation. Imagine if every page of every regulation was a click away. And how is that possible? Next slide, please. We do that by making a single destination for all regulations. Now, this all sits on a SharePoint cloud platform available, any page available to anyone on the planet. So if we then, for instance, look at, say, something like ASIC, it means that we can ingest all this regulation at massive scale and then filter the information so that you can actually filter the information by regulation or by category or by topic. There's no more downloads, there's no more PDFs, there's no more scrolling, searching, etc. Every page has a URL. And so if every page has a URL, it can be shared with anyone on any device, in any language, anywhere in the world. Next slide, please. Next one, please. That's it. So the problems that we are solving are really massive because they affect everyone in the entire industry. The volume of content is absolutely out of control. For instance, Regulation City, we launched with a 35,000 page website, and we're adding thousands of pages every month. So the great thing is that this works at massive scale. So we're able to ingest content in a very, very quick manner. The other thing too is that when there's massive volumes of content, you've got the other big challenge, of course, is keeping up to date with the changes to that content. A lot of people don't realize that the Corporations Act changed over 30 times last year. So, and that's 6,000 pages long. So just keeping up to date is a huge thing. Now, it's also made much worse by the fact that the content itself is still in horse and buggy format. It's in the same PDF format we've been using for over 30 years. So PDF was actually only invented 6 months after the launch of the internet. So you can start to see here what's changed in the land of internet compared to what's handled in the world of documents. So what we're doing instead is we're ingesting content from these legacy Word and PDF formats and bringing them into web format at massive scale. So this means that we can actually filter and synthesize information. So in the case of what the challenge that all the people on this call have is that you're trying to reduce costs, you're trying to lower risk at a time when there's increased complexity in regulation and increased volumes of information. So in other words, you've got these two countervailing forces that make it very difficult. This is why you need to not just update the regulations, you need to update the technology to manage and present the regulations. And then deliver a fantastic customer experience where you have smart people doing smart jobs, not smart people doing dumb jobs. Next slide, please, Home. Now, for instance, ASIC is a fantastic regulator, but of course they present many tens of thousands of documents, and to reach any one of them, you've really got to go and search through the site, then download the material into PDF format, and then somehow then compare that against your policies and your procedures. Next slide, please. With a bit of a delay, but what we're going to show you on the next slide is that every page has its own URL and every page is a click away. So the navigation that you saw in a Word document is now mirrored in a website because we've imported the structure of it with as we have moved this into web format. But any subsection, section 1.1 or 1.1.1 is another URL and it is a click away. But the nice thing too is you've got all these other things there, such as dynamic glossaries, you've got the previous editions of the information, you've got onboard help, you can translate the language into 100 different languages. And yes, it works on a mobile and it's WCAG accessible. And it works on any large set of documents. And you're one click away. You can see on the navigation line there, ASIC, APRA, AUSTRAC. You can just click into another regulator instantly. Next slide, please. In the case of ACCC, for instance, I just thought we'd just take an example of ACCC by saying, because it has a sort of a large amount to do with the competition and consumer. So it has a broad audience. People forget that in Australia, 27% of us don't speak English at home. When was the last time you saw a regulation or a government policy or a procedure that was in a language other than English? So we are already disadvantaging a quarter of our population. Not anymore. Regulation city, any language, anywhere, anytime. Next slide, please.
Bruce, 10 seconds, Bruce.
And there it is in French. Okay, next slide, please. So here we have always up to date, always pointing back at the regulator. So we are creating a digital twin of the original. So we don't change the source. What we do is we give you a web-based view of that information. Next slide, please. It benefits really to any stakeholder group because we add value to every stakeholder group. And lastly, this is an international platform. We're now working with international editions. Can I go back one slide, please? International editions. We're working with one group there about bringing in all AML and CTF regulation for a dozen countries all at once. And of course, the ability then to apply this to your policies and your procedures. So then, because our vision is to say regulations, policies, procedures, all web-based and all cross-referenced and cross-linked. On on our slide, please go and take a chance to take an opportunity to go and have a look at the Regulation City. There's a 30-day free trial for those of you who want to have a poke around. Watch the video there. And we're interested in talking to you, of course, if you're a partner, if you're an investor, or if you're someone who can help us expand our global footprint. Thank you for your time today. That was very quick.
Thank you, Bruce, and well done. And yes, as an financial services regulator myself, I can definitely vouch for the amount of regulatory materials and documents out there. So yeah.
Well, the good news is we can ingest about a few thousand pages a day. So the technology is very robust now.
Got it. Well, got it. No, that's very useful to know. So yeah. So Bruce, you already have some questions for you in the chat function. Yeah. Anyone has any further questions for Bruce? Please shoot them through in the chat function. Our next speaker for today is Gabriel Hopkins from RegTech. Over to you, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Michael. And thanks for the opportunity to come and speak to you all about and introduce you to RegTech. So if we could go to the next slide. We actually have two solutions. I'm going to be talking about our customer screening solution primarily today. Our customer screening is focused on what we call name and media screening. So that is screening customers against watch lists, PEP lists, sanctions lists, and the news, adverse media in general. Some of you will be more familiar with why you'd want to do that, but essentially organizations of all different types today want to understand when their counterparties, vendors, suppliers, but predominantly their clients have done something bad in the news, and they want to be able to expose that and respond to it, to be able to validate whether or not that is their customer and whether or not that's a risk that they want to be cognizant of. We've only been a member of the RTA for just a little over a year, but actually we've been around for about 8 years. We've been working in screening for 3 or 4 years, and some of our early clients were big global banks with branches in Singapore and in Asia Pacific. And that's really where we got a bit of a kickstart from. I've also got on the slide here a brief mention of another solution we have called Labyrinth Investigations. These are our two solutions as a company. The reason I mention that is that this is a platform that's also used extensively in Australia. It's a data fusion platform that's used by corporations, but also by governments, intelligence, policing, and law enforcement to tie together different strands of data, really to go looking to connect dots and to find needles in the haystack. And there's a set of tooling in there which is really powerful from a financial services, financial intelligence unit perspective as well. And so we expect also to be talking more about investigations, but we're limited on time today, so I'm going to focus on screening. If we could look at the next slide, what we show there is how we've tried to disrupt the process of name and media screening. So historically, people were using watch lists a lot when they were dealing with screening against the news. What we've got with our background in signals processing is some fantastic technology which enables us to process huge quantities, millions of articles per day of unstructured data alongside structured data, to make sense of all of that. And so what we do there, I'm going to just pick out a few technologies quickly on the next slide as we go through, but we have this complex pipeline where we take these vast quantities of news and make sense of them. Here's just a quick look at some of the key technologies. Yeah, please go ahead, Hong. That's great. Let's look at the next slide. So one of the important things that we want to do, watch lists are obviously a complex area in their own right, but when we look at unstructured data, it's where that gets truly, requires a sophisticated solution. So we use AI and machine learning to make sense, to read news articles in 21 different languages today. And we break down what's happening, who's doing what to who. And so the example we always give is Paris Hilton stayed at the Paris Hilton Hotel in Paris. Maybe a little out of date, but hopefully it gives you the idea of how complex it can be to read news and to make sense of it. And we're using this great technology to pull that out. Why do you want to do that? Well, you don't want to be flooded with false positives. You only want to be looking at those news articles which are about risk and which are about your clients. Also, you know, a lot of news gets repeated, whether or not it's syndicated or it's simply just the same story being told. So we have some great technology to crunch that down to find what are the actual really important stories. And then another key element is making sure that we're matching just against your customers, but that we are not missing potential matches. And so we looked at the solutions out there and determined we needed to start from scratch with identity resolution. And so we built our own solution, which deals with name variants across multiple different scripts and languages to make sure that we are catching all potential matches against one of your particular customers. I think probably need to skip to the end. I think I'm out of time, Michael, but we'd love to speak to you to give you a full demo. We have a new capability I was going to mention today called AI profiles, where we do go even further to collapsing this data down. But thank you very much for your time today and to taking a look at the solution. You're on mute, Michael.
Thank you, Gabriel. So yes, if anyone would like to take up Gabriel's offer of a demo, please reach out to him. If any questions for Gabriel, please shoot them through via the chat function. Now, Gabriel, we've actually had an email, a question come through via email, which the RegTech Association has forwarded to me. And the question is, how are regulators currently viewing adverse media data? Right? How are regulators viewing adverse media data? Now, in the interest of time, can I please get you to answer via the chat function for everyone to?
Absolutely, I'll do that right now. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriel. And our final speaker for today is David Gray from Workflow.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thanks very much to the RegTech Association. Look, just to start off with, Workflow is basically a multitasking platform. Simply what we are. We automate, we integrate, we process. Next slide, Hong. Basically, we're a hybrid iPaaS for the financial service sector client and other industries that use us. We have certain core GRC products and other integrated solutions in trust management, digital payments, asset processing and reporting. Trust management to us is a bigger area for us to play in, $40 trillion market, and that's where we look to excel. We match and mix data and integrate and process. That's what our platform does. Our capabilities in data processing are endless. We have over 200 codes and modules. At the end of this month, we'll roll out a new RegTech AFSL program, which basically can be used in more than one country in design. I'll move to the next page, Hong. Oh, thank you. The Workflow platform is really, we see it as a hive. We basically break ourselves up into different areas that are in RegTech and out of RegTech. Our FlowBiz product, as an example, flows right through our business. It's a 20-year design of the FlowBiz program that we can click a button and we can realign all our codes in seconds from that development phase. So with a whole of enterprise program, we have a back office program, we have a front office program, and we have a middle office program. Again, in trust management, asset management, operations, and compliance. Moving forward, Hong. Our secret sauce, what is it exactly? Well, basically, it's an integration capability, both at the data level and between the client and our platform and at the product level. And I'll just talk about this a little bit more. In our bespoke RegTech solutions, we have Angios, which we designed for managed investment schemes. We've also designed it for registered and unregistered schemes, whereby the client can actually ingest their compliance plan, which is the truth source of information, match it against our software, produce actual outcomes in terms of meeting their compliance, also with an audit portal that your auditors can go in and look at and check exactly where they're up to in terms of their compliance. And that normally happens at a 9-month review with Deloitte and other PwC and other programs. Again, with Angios LIC, which is our AFSL program, that will be released at the end of this month. And the design of that is basically to take the whole AFSL activities in terms of being able to comply with your requirements on whatever time frame you seek in terms of meeting your obligations. But in addition to that, also click a further button on the software where you can pull down data and pull that information in to comply. But in addition to that, have a process capability, which I'm not aware of that's been done yet before. And just in terms of why I've included FlowBiz and PopDocs here is firstly, PopDocs, when you ingest that compliance plan from the client for their registered managed investment scheme, we ingest that in seconds inside our software. In terms of FlowBiz then automates every activity for the client. And in automation in our world, it's about basically you click a button and it goes away and does it. Otherwise, you have semi-automation, basically where it gets to a certain point and then it requires a review process. Again, with Combi that we've got below, it provides a reporting service both on listed and unlisted securities. So we automate all the information that goes in the bank account. It spits across from that bank account into creating the share scripts, in creating the registry and completing all tasks. Next slide, thanks, Hong. Again, our network, over 1,000 projects. The original source code of us goes back to 2000. Only in the last 2 years, we've moved to a RegTech model. In terms of companies, over 1,300 companies and 44,000 users. We've had St George Bank on our software, New Zealand Health Authority, Telstra back in its time, certain other clients I can't say because we have confidentiality agreements, but that's the unfortunate thing about having different clients that have different requirements from us. Next slide, Hong. All right, core solutions. I just spoke about Angios, which is basically being able to ingest a compliance plan, report in real time. It's a proof, it is a source of proof. The client's compliance plan in registered scheme world is basically, it is exactly what it is. You find out whether you comply or not. It includes a risk management system mapped off against it, plus an audit portal. FlowBiz is our generation software that we use for that, but we thought we'd offer FlowBiz out to the rest of the world so you can, if in time a RegTech client would like to automate part of their programs, you can go and do that and chart it for $5 per month as opposed to other softwares, and then click another 2 buttons and then automate that activity. Again, PopDocs is an ingestion engine that also assists a client. And then finally, Hong, just one page back, you've gone a bit too quick for me. Or have I run out of time? All right, customer integrations. Again, we show different examples for the client of basically things we've achieved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. And sorry we had to rush you a bit there, but we're coming up to the 1 hour mark. So well done to all the speakers. Well done for getting in your presentations in time. So yes, I'll hand you back to our host, Deborah.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to everyone. There's a little poll that I'd really appreciate if you could fill out before you log off. And if you know how to use the function where you can clap somebody, if you could please give Hong a clap, because he has been working under incredible duress. We have phones going here, we have all kinds of things so that he could actually hear through my phone, through my speaker here when people were saying next, because he's lost his sound, his internet is not working. So thanks everybody, and thank you to Hong, because that's been quite a difficult journey. So we do apologise for some of the quality issues and the jumping around. But thank you, and thank you for your support. That's great. There you go, Hong. They're all for you. If you can see them, they're all for you. So just in wrapping up, because we are right on the 1 hour mark, I just wanted to point out we've got a couple of great things coming up, and one of those is our RegTech Awards Gala Dinner, which is coming up on the 27th of October, which will be held in Sydney. The awards themselves will be launched in about a month's time. So please, if you do have a RegTech company, or you're even a regulated institution and you think you've been doing innovation really well, or you're a RegTech company that would like to apply for one of the many different categories that we have, please do get that in, and we're going to come together for the first time in 2.5 years en masse to have a big dinner on the 27th of October. We hope you can join. And we've got a number of other RegTech Edge programs coming up that you can see on there, 28th of July and the 11th of August. And we've got a couple of others that we are looking to schedule soon. So I think that is all from me today. Thank you all very much for coming along. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for the claps, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event.